All right, now we got to get into the essential fragrant woods of fragrance. This is a big one, like the sandalwood and patchouli and iris root, and basically your woody notes. Your cedar, your pine, and even your oak moss and vetiver can work well with the woods. So this is one of those things that really helps with the finish. Like you will have a lot of these fragrances, even Acquadiccio, and we get that aquatic and the persimmon and peach and basically a lot of these scent notes in that fragrance that would make it fresh, but the sandalwood touch really brings sensuality and warmth to it. And this is where wood and amber, and fragrant woods especially, but with amber they can build a romantic dry down in a fragrance. Now fragrant woods are one of those things, like patchouli can be metaphysical smelling, it can be very exotic, it can be very strong and pungent. There are so many different types of patchouli and sandalwood. Those are the most common. And then you get the ebony and the other kinds of wood too, and mahogany, rosewood, teak. The list goes on. You want rich wood, resinous woods that can build a good matrix in the dry down. And building that matrix is the key, because in fragrances, you have a lot of woody spice. And, basically, when it comes to the fragrant woods, this is where the sensuality can be increased, because people get a lot of these metaphysical incense-oriented woods that were traditionally used to create pungent odors, and they got just a little bit of this in their fragrances. And Joe Balm is a good example of it, because you have the patchouli and the sandalwood, which give an exotic touch to the dry down. And the Middle Eastern fragrances will have musk and agarwood. And that is the thing about the exotic touch, is the musk and the agarwood in the Middle Eastern fragrances that you have. That is an example of this too. But then in the American fragrances, you tone down the woods, and like a French have rich wood. American fragrances tend to be more on the fresh side. They tend to be more in the aquatic and fruity. And if it's wood, it's usually woody aromatic, or it's a gourmand with just enough wood. But they tend to use pine and cypress and cedar and more nondescript woods. And if there's sandalwood or patchouli in an American fragrance, it's usually not the rich, sensual kind. It's usually the much more nondescript. And basically, it's used to tie other notes together, because this is where, when it comes to wood, you can have some very piney, heavy, like forest smell if you're not careful. So fragrant woods are definitely a necessity in fragrance, but they have to be put in just right. So, it's my video on fragrant woods, and it's definitely a very important scent note. And basically, the vetiver and the moss will dry something out and build a rich chapur that has like that cypress and pungency to it too. So, with woody scents, I prefer the chapur. Like, to me, it's more masculine. And then the wood, it can work with leather and the chapur very well. And this is where then you have your oriental woodies, where you have amber or some kind of warmth to your wood. And then, this is where you have your fresh aromatic woody or your citrus woody, like the Fierce Cologne. And basically, more of the citrus type, basically we get the matrix and we get the spectrum. And the spectrum is important, because the different components of everything will make it work or not work. And so, it's my video on woods, and thanks for watching.